Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Screeny. Joe Rogan has been tantalizing our airwaves since 2009 on his podcast. Thanks to his no-nonsense attitude, the show has become one of the most popular of its kind. Over the years, Joe has sat down to talk with a number of guests, and he isn't afraid to raise subjects that are taboo. If he has an opinion, you can bet your bottom dollar that he's going to voice it, regardless of how it's going to be received. From LGBTQ rights to the Harvey Weinstein scandal, Joe has a knack for ruffling feathers. Join us as we take a look at the most controversial moments on the Joe Rogan Experience. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos about your favorite movies and TV shows. Number 10. Asia Argento Controversy. Some of you may remember that Hollywood was turned upside down when Harvey Weinstein was accused of all sorts of awful things. One of his biggest criticizers was Asia Argento, the girlfriend of the late Anthony Bourdain. Earlier this year, a man came forward to say that he had slept with Asia when he was just 17, and she was old enough to know better. Joe isn't one to hold back on subjects, and he went in hard on this one. The subject came up after a conversation about the age of consent in different states, with Joe then moving on to Asia. And he went for the jugular, calling the actress a monster, saying that she was a hypocrite, and used plenty of colorful language to emphasize his point.
She's a fucking monster.
In
a way?
We can't say he's wrong, in honesty. She had known the boy from the age of 7 before they hooked up 10 years later. And that's... it's just plain weird. Number 9. Race and gender. Rogan really got into it when he had Thaddeus Russell as a guest. The history and philosophy professor spoke about his views of life on campus, particularly when it came to race and gender. In his view, people who fought for social justice are actually just big fat racists. Thaddeus went on to say while previously people were pigeonholed because of their race and gender, that's all changed thanks to the works of academics and the work of postmodernism. The Wilmington professor then took aim at the trans community, telling Rogan that they took the work of postmodernists and used it to their advantage by manipulating the language. Joe wasn't going to take Russell's claims lying down and challenged him head on, asking him why he thought that no one had the right to feel like they were born to be a specific gender. The best part? When Joe looked at his guest and simply said, "I think we're getting silly."
I'm saying that I think
we're getting silly.
Hold on here.
Long live the Roganator. Number 8. The Cosmo Lover. Early in 2018, Cosmopolitan rocks the boat when they had a plus-sized model, Tess Holliday, appear on the cover wearing a bikini. The issue focused on challenging body norms, with Cosmo claiming that they wanted plus-size women to be more prominent in fashion magazines. The world was divided, with some praising the publication while others claimed that it was dangerous to normalize a woman who was severely overweight and unhealthy. Rogan took aim at Cosmo on his podcast, letting the world know that he was strictly against the promotion of a morbidly obese woman eating herself to death.
Yeah, and they were challenging beauty norms like, this is a person that's eating themselves to death, you fucking assholes. And
Rogan called the standard ridiculous, going on to theorize on how a similar photo would look on the cover of a men's health magazine. Would it go down as well if a guy with a beer gut said that he was the new look everyone should aspire to? Body positivity advocates weren't happy, but did Joe give a flying F? Of course he didn't. Number 7. Elon Musk. This episode might be the most controversial of them all, at least in recent years. Musk has been stacking up the controversies as of late, but his appearance on the show was particularly media-worthy. In September of 2017, Musk talked to Joe for almost 3 hours about a variety of subjects, but it would be his actions that got him into trouble. Rogan offered him a puff on a joint, and he accepted. Within 5 days, the podcast had 10 million views, and Tesla stock had dropped by $9 billion. Some wondered if Musk's other projects would be affected, but Tesla soon bounced back. Joe later recounted the situation on a separate episode and said it wasn't any different than Musk having a whiskey.
Fascinating conversation. I thought it was nothing. I thought, so we smoked a little pot. I literally didn't think anything of it.
Unfortunately, some people didn't see it that way. Number 6. Trans people in sport. Rogan sat down with Sam Harris and Majid Nawaz to talk about sport. Nawaz brought up an issue in the Commonwealth Games where one male-to-female transgender athlete competed and was on track to win their sport as they were beating the rest of the females. By chance, the athlete became injured and wasn't able to continue competing. Nawaz explained that it was difficult for officials to monitor as male-to-female trans athletes would naturally have more testosterone levels in their system. Rogan expanded on the topic by drawing on his experience with martial arts, referencing a similar situation that he had come across.
There was a woman who was used to be a man, was competing in mixed martial arts against women and just beating the shit out of them. And I was saying that this is a mistake. Yeah. Do you have the freedom to become a woman, in quotes, in our society? Yes, but you can't deny biological nature, and there's physiological advantages to the male frame.
In true Joe fashion, he compared a male-to-female sportswoman to a woman being on steroids for 30 years.
Right. And if you're telling me that a guy living 30 years of his life as a man, that's essentially like a woman being on steroids for 30 years and then having regular women being forced to compete with her and trying to pretend this is a level playing field. It is not.
Was it the best way to put it? Probably not, and it certainly went down like a lead balloon with the LGBTQ community. Number 5. Tom Segura's joke. Stand-up comedian Tom Segura regularly appears on the JRE whenever he has the chance. That being said, you can pretty much gather that Joe and Tommy are tight. You wouldn't work with someone that much if you didn't like them, right? Tommy came under fire for using the R word in one of his routines, and Joe addressed the controversy on his show. The podcast host called the outcry bizarre and went on to slam people for taking offense to it.
That was bizarre.
It was a lot, man. It was a lot.
People were lying about the bit, and they were doing it in email campaigns. They were lying about the content of the bit.
Yeah.
They were changing what you were saying in the bit. And they had to be doing it on purpose. They definitely didn't listen to the bit.
Joe also went for the media, saying that they largely fabricated everything that Tommy said in his bit and used it to sell stories. The comic explained how it really went down and also defended his actions, talking Joe how things actually happened.
I started the bit by saying, you can't say retarded anymore. That's the first line of the entire bit. And then people would say to me, like, to start... When I started getting mail about it, they were like, you can't say retarded. And I go, that's the line that I say. Like, that's the line in the joke.
Tommy explained how crazy the campaign against him went, with over 100,000 people signing a petition to get his show kicked off of Netflix. Number 4. Tom DeLonge. Blink-182 singer Tom DeLonge used to be a teen heartthrob, but these days, he's sorta nuts. Joe had him on the podcast back in 2017, and it made for one of the most awkward episodes ever. DeLonge is quite famous for believing in aliens. Joe, on the other hand, didn't seem to be buying any of Tom's claims. According to the musician, he had seen many documents that explained how alien technology worked, seen some of the tech himself, and generally just knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was another species that we don't know about. We all know that Joe isn't exactly one to be tactful about his opinions, and he didn't disappoint this time. He straight up asked Tom how often people call him crazy.
Now let me ask you this. How often into a conversation do people look at you and think you are fucking crazy when you start talking about this? And how long
all the time, yeah.
All the time, right? But do you ever get to the point where you're like, I don't want to talk about this?
No, because I always tell people you don't know what I know.
We were all thinking it, but Joe said it. He truly is a champion of the people. Number 3, Rosieanne Barr. Celebrities often have some surprising connections, but we never expected Joe Rogan to be BFFs with Rosieanne Barr. Barr famously got axed from the newly relaunched show last year after tweeting out some seemingly racist things. Her defense? That she was taking Ambien and it messed her up so much that she didn't know what she was doing. Everyone and their dog turned against Rosieanne, so when Joe defended her on his podcast, it caused a serious stir. According to Joe, he spoke to Barr on the phone and she defended her tweets, saying that she didn't even know that the person she tweeted about, politician Valerie Jarrett, was black. Rogan got his staff to pull up a picture of Jarrett and agreed, saying that he could see where she was coming from and without a doubt believed everything that Rosieanne had said. Rogan spoke with actor and filmmaker Kevin Smith about it, but Smith didn't seem entirely sold on the explanation. Number 2, Caitlyn Jenner. Joe is very on board with trans rights, but he does draw the line at people being douchebags. Back in 2016, Jenner appeared on The Ellen Show and was quizzed about his prior stance against gay marriage. It didn't go down well, and the media dragged Caitlyn for it, although he said that he had since changed his opinion on it. Joe called Jenner a ridiculous person and insulted the former athlete's intelligence repeatedly.
Because you realize, first of all, how stupid he really is. He's a dumb man. He's not smart.
And honestly, that was the nicest thing that Rogan had to say about him. The 51-year-old went on to accuse Caitlyn of using her gender as a safe place so that no one could criticize her anymore.
You're not supposed to make fun of it because it's a thing about gender. Why is gender all of a sudden this is the only category that precludes you from humor?
Joe really went for the jugular on this one, reminding listeners of the time that the Keeping Up with the Kardashians star was responsible for the death of a woman in a road traffic accident.
Everybody forgets he killed a woman. He fucking slammed into some lady because he wasn't paying attention, knocked her into oncoming traffic, and she died, and everybody just sort of whisked that away. It's preposterous. This is a preposterous person.
Number 1, Black Panther. When Black Panther was released, it was hailed for being one of the first movies featuring predominantly black people. It did really well at the box office and was critically praised. But there were some people who were ignorant about it. Joe addressed the controversy and said he couldn't understand why some white people had an issue with it, considering that the movie had stayed true to the comic. Then he went on to criticize some people that were crazy liberals that were asking white people to not go and see the movie in theaters because they would ruin it for black people because of their white privilege. Both Joe and his co-host ripped those people down, comparing the release to Black Panther to the release of Blade and Shaft. They went on to muse that the world was more divided than ever.
Like, what are we doing? Are we more divided now than we ever were before? Are we so silly that you can't? I want to go see Black Panther because I like fucking superhero movies and it looks cool.
Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.